Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 115. I'm delighted today to be joined by Andrea Riboli. Andrea, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Hi, Ben. Thank you very much for your invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for giving up your time. And Andrea is the head of sports science at Atalanta Football Club in Serie A. So we're going to get a great perspective of a practitioner working in one of the top leagues in Europe. So I really appreciate you giving up your time and coming on to the podcast. But do you want to just start us off, Andrea? I've just talked about your current role, but do you just want to give us a little bit about your background, your education, what sort of led you up to working at Atalanta?
Okay. Some year ago, I got a PhD in sports science because I believe in research and the effects of research in our work as strength and conditioning. And since about 10 years, I work as a strength and conditioning coach and a sports scientist, both for youth and adult soccer player, professional soccer player. And over the last 6 years, I work as head of sports science. And at the same time, I collaborate with different, I'm trying to collaborate with different university about different research projects because I believe in the importance of the research to increase continuously our knowledges. So this is my main experience, both from the field in soccer, also from the laboratory for a different type of assessment and in research. So these are the three main aspects of my expertise and my background.
And then, so where did that lead you in terms of leading up to the role to Atalanta? Did you work at different clubs, or was Atalanta the first club that you worked at?
No, I did different positions in different club in Italy. Firstly, I started working in a laboratory of physiology, and I work with different type of athletes, doing different tests from a physiological perspective, for example, maximal oxygen uptake, lactate threshold, or other, and on the pitch with different squad because I tested a lot of professional team from the third series in Italy to Serie A. But without working with a club, but working with a laboratory for testing. This was my first experience. I improved my ability to conduct a different type of testing. Then I moved to a different club with a youth player in Italy, different professional club, Como Football Club. I did an internship in AC Milan. Then I moved to Atalanta with a youth team for 2 years. And over the last 6 years, I worked with the first team. And similarly, I work also with different type of athletes, testing by my experience in university as a researcher. I tested different athletes. So this is my main experience is from laboratory to testing on the field with a different type of youth soccer player, different club, since to my work now in Atalanta. My last experience as is a link between the pitch and research.
And just to tap into that, in terms of how sports science operates in Italy compared to the UK or possibly the rest of Europe, what do you see as some similarities, but also maybe some differences between the way we work over here to the way you guys work over in Italy?
Okay. Unfortunately, I never worked in Premier League firstly, so
Not yet, Andrea, not yet.
I hope to work in the future in Premier League. It would be a great experience. But I spoke with different sports scientists working around the world in different leagues, and there are some similarities but also some differences. For example, the rural sport science in Italy are growing now over the last year. The link between research and practice need to be created and need to be increased over the time. I think that in different clubs, for example, in Premier League, the ratio between the research and practice is a little bit more strong than in Italy. I know that since about 10 years, there are some departments working with a lot of, for example, PhD students that work in a different aspect about sports science. One PhD working in tests, one working in monitoring, one working in wellness or other. In my opinion, this is a really interesting approach. And in Italy, we need to improve, in my opinion, our approach with this basis to create the link between research and practice, because nowadays we have a lot of data during practice. We have data from testing, from monitoring on the pitch, from wellness, from strength in the gym. So all this data should be utilized both for planning and monitoring activities day by day, but also to increase our knowledge. So it's very important for the sports science in Italy, in my opinion, working to grow continuously. So this could be some differences, I think.
And then just to give a little bit of context on your situation, how many staff members are within your sports science team?
Okay, we in my experience over the last year, we work. For example, in the first team, we work in we were with five strength and conditioning coach. One working for pre-training activities, one working especially in the gym for strength and power. I work especially as a sports scientist, and I work with other four guys in the academy, working exactly in the same way, and sometimes working on different projects for the first team, using data for the first team, for project that could be interesting for the first team, involving the guys working for academy. So the point was five strength and conditioning with different responsibility, with for example, the head of rehabilitation, the head of sports science, and me working with the four guys in academy. This was over the last year the structure or the sports science department. And another important aspect was the interesting to build a collaboration with different universities. This is one other part of the sports science department, in my opinion, but this is really related, because we collect information, we use information on the pitch, we work with academy guys, and then we work closely with the university to produce a research project useful for us on the field for practice, but also for research and to increase our knowledges.
Brilliant. Yeah, it gives a great insight into how the team looks. But one thing we were going to start with was your approach, but also the club's approach to player wellness. So what can you talk us through the sort of the structure of any sort of wellness work that you do with the players and how you approach that?
Okay. To determine the wellness is not simple, as you clearly know. We need to try to improve continuously the technology. Also, the research paper need to continuously work to improve the technologies about that. I know that in England there are some clubs that work really strongly in the wellness before of the player, before a training session, to determine different aspects before training session. I read a lot of paper about the wellness from Premier League, so we are trying to work, especially using wellness scales Now we don't we can't in this moment do a lot of assessments, so we try to utilize the simple one but reliable one using different scale monitor to determine the sleep quality, the total quality recovery, the DOMS on the leg or different part of the body. And so we are trying to utilize this information to better understand some aspect of our player, because to start the training on the pitch. About this topic, we work closely with the medical department, because in my opinion, we need to work as a performance department really closely with the medical department about this. And we are trying to improve our data about this aspect. But now we are using only different scales as suggested by the different research project. But now, because it's simple, it's safe, it's reliable, and we can speak with the player before the training session to understand their wellness, their feelings, and so this is the way. Probably in the future, in my opinion, could be really interesting to introduce some sub-maximal assessment day by day, but now we don't, unfortunately, we can collect this information day by day, but this is a perspective for the future.
And that, because that was the other thing we were going to talk about, was the physical monitoring and assessments that you do with players, but also not just what you do, but how that affects a player's program then as well.
Okay. Yes, clearly, in my opinion, the monitoring is important if we can manage training load on the pitch and during practice. Is the main the main aspect of the monitoring process. Normally, for example, I'll give you an example. Sometimes we utilize small-sided game, and we are trying to study the different formats of small-sided game, different exercise, different drills, different positional drills, different running-based drills. We are trying to collect a lot of information about this, and we are trying, especially during sport-specific activities, to understand the physiological responses, respect, for example, the most demanding passage of match play during activities, or we are trying to relate this information continuously. The monitoring is really important for this, because we can understand the demands of our player from an internal point of view, for example, cardiovascular responses during small set game, or external load responses, and we try to manage different aspects as pitch size, as some supplement activities, running based exercise activities, supplement activities after small-sided games, if coach prefer to use really small-sided games. This is the main approach. We are trying to use also the live system help us during practice, because we can try to modulate. We are trying to conduct a research project about the ratio between different training load and performance development. We are working on this. We have some data, but I hope to show this information and share this information in the future. But we are trying to work strongly on monitoring and collecting data to manage training load on the pitch. So all information are clearly used and utilized, for example, to suggest to increase different external load using, for example, sport-specific activities, because it's more difficult increase and reach the match demand using sport-specific drills than running-based exercise. But probably it's most important, because soccer players need to to play strong with the ball in large size during the match, try to work in a tactical behavior, organized or player organized. We can recreate this condition near to the maximal demanding of the match play using small-sided game. But for this aim, we need to monitor a lot of aspects and try to change a little bit different aspects to try to increase slowly. One day we change something, another day we change something to try to increase continuously and reduce the gap between match demands and training. This is the approach we are trying. It's not simple, as you know, but this is the approach. And
how easy is it then to take account for the individual within that session? Because obviously you're going to have different players, different positions, different match demands. So how easy is it for you to then manage the individual player?
It's not simple. As you know, we need to take into account the difference between different subjects. Sometimes small-sided game, for example, I give you this example because it is one of the most utilized sport-specific drills. Recreate some conditional similar to position demands in the match. And so we can utilize, for example, different pitch sizes to increase the demand or respect to the match demands in all players altogether. But sometimes it's not simple with some players, because one player, for example, don't move a lot in small-sided games, or another one it's not simple. So we need to try to utilize different individual positional exercise during the activity, during the week, to recreate some condition, conditioning activities for different players. For example, if forwards, for example, is not simple to recreate match activities using small-sided game for forward, at least in my experience. So forwards sometimes need to position a specific exercise, for example, to recreate some condition more higher than the demand in the small-sided game, or both for physiological responses or external load responses, as a sprint or very high-speed running. So this could be the approach. We can monitor the training load imposed from our coaching uses different small-sided game. We can try to help coaches to using different format of small-sided game or different positional exercise, and try to utilize supplementary or different positional exercise to recreate some condition in different players. So we using this simple approach, we can condition the player similar to their requirement, and we can be more focused on their demands, or their internal external load demands, or other aspects.
And that was the next thing we were going to cover is I suppose your relationship with the technical and tactical coaches, and how you've talked about load there, how you monitor load, but then also how that impacts the team session then. So the team training session, the technical and tactical work that goes on within that session.
I think that we have the head coach, clearly, and a lot of assistant coach that work really strong about the video analysis of our player, to trying to organize different exercise for tactical behavior or for other. In my opinion, our role is to help them to understand the demand of their exercise on the pitch, and try, if we can, if the exercise could be not only technical with low intensity to improve the position, to learn the right position, but if they would also to increase the demands, we can suggest them the intensity of different exercise, to try to recreate some condition near not only to the average match demands, but to the most demanding passage of match play. For example, if our assistant coach would to to work with some positional exercises for forwards and wide forwards to recreate some tactical condition, using 4 or 5 bouts of 2 minutes, for example, with 1 minute of recover. We can suggest them the intensity of the most demanding passage of match play during 2 minutes, for example. So we can try to have normally I have a table with all data for all player, and we try to understand, oh, it's good, oh no, we can do we can work strongly. Could we try to work strongly, yes or no? And the coaches try to increase if they can, and if the aims of the activities and exercise is not only technical and tactical, but also could be become physical, for example. This could be an approach to be really integrated, because coaches, assistant coaches, and sports scientists or strength and conditioning, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. That underlines that importance of that integrated approach, doesn't it? That they understand what you're trying to get out of the session, but then in return, you understand what they're trying to get out of the session as well.
No, it's really important, because, for example, I don't have the technologies that a coach have, that the assistant coach have, because sometimes the assistant coach are was soccer players, were soccer players. They play a lot of matches. They have a lot of experience about the playing soccer more than me. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I studied, I played, but at amateur level, not a lot. But I study the demands of different exercises. I do strength. I love strength. I love running. And so we need to improve each other. I improve speaking with the coaches. I improve myself, and I hope to share some information about physiological demands with them, because it's too much important. Also, for our aim as strength and conditioning coach, our aim is to maintain or develop. It's not simple in soccer, but maintain or develop the performance ability of our soccer players across the season. But as you can read in a lot of paper, but probably as you know, it's really important to increase the ability to conduct high intensity activity with the ball, because probably this could change the game, or we can try to train as better as possible our player, linking with these two aspects, technical, tactical, and physical. It's not simple, but the link between different departments, from technical, physical, medical, also the performance, is my opinion, is the collaboration between different departments. Without collaboration, I think that we can do our best. I believe in the collaboration, because I don't have the all the technologies of physio, of doctor, of assistant coaches, of coaches, and so.
No, that I love that you brought that up, because that is something that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, is the importance of integration between teams, or specialists, I suppose, but also that collaboration like you're talking about. It's so important, isn't it? And like you've just said, your knowledge that you have can supplement the coach's knowledge, as long as you both work together, and and it works the other way as well.
No, I agree with you. I believe I think that we can help each other inside the department when we have, because also for strength and conditioning, for example, I probably my expertise is mainly based on exercise physiology, training load monitoring on the pitch, the use of heart rate, and external load monitoring relating to match performance. But another one could have a more experience in strength and power. So I can improve my knowledge also working with a great specialist as a strength and conditioning coach, but with a main expertise in strength or in other aspects. For example, I can improve my knowledges working with a strength and conditioning coach with specializing in rehabilitation, for example. Also, inside each department, in my opinion, there are a lot of expertise that we need to. I believe in one thing. I don't know if we could reach the soccer could reach, at least in Italy, this approach. I hope, but I think that all strength and conditioning coach need to be able to prescribe exercise, conduct exercise on the pitch, collect data, perform research on this data for different topics. For example, the one percent is more based for strength, with ability for strength, reading a lot of paper in the literature about strength and power. One other one working about monitoring to increase the performance on the pitch, another one about wellness. This I believe in this approach. I don't know if in some part of the world they are conducting this approach. I would to meet them. I spoke with them if it will be possible, but I believe that this could be the future, because in this way we can improve and working closely at the best ways possible, I think.
Yeah, we've spoke about this before as well on the podcast in terms of like a football specialist and having like a specific aspect of sports science or strength conditioning that you focus on and you specialize in. I suppose the opposite to that would be a practitioner that's at a club, which I'm sure you have in Italy, maybe in the lower leagues, where there might only be one person, and then they have to then cover a bit of everything then, don't they?
No, yeah, no, it's happened also in Italy, but also at the elite level. Uh, Clearly, I spoke about it's this possibility is main for the club that have a lot of training conditioning working all together. Also in Italy, there are some clubs also in Serie A that don't have, for example, 4 or 5 training conditioning or and so they need to work alone. In other experience, I work alone, and we need to know all aspects of strength and conditioning, because sometimes it could happen to work on the pitch, but clearly me or you probably have one main expertise, because if I work alone, probably my main expertise is based on aerobic activities and the performance development using exercise on the pitch. I work also about strength, but for example, about rehabilitation. It's not my main expertise. I never study a lot about this. Probably there are some guys more able than me to do this approach. So every one of us could work in all aspects of strength and conditioning. That we need to be able to work in all aspects, but we have a main important expertise.
No, I think that's
So
definitely
it
fair.
depends from the level.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people will relate to that, and it's a great point. The other thing we were going to bring up, Andrea, was, and you touched on it a little bit before, but is your approach or the club's approach to high intensity work and what that looks like. You mentioned about some high intensity work with the ball. So how do you structure that, and how does that fit into your week?
Okay. Well, it's not all weeks are the same. As I spoke some week ago with Basic Performance podcast, I I spoke about this the use of different small set game format, for example, inside the week to determine high intensity activities. In my opinion, but also reading different paper coming from different country in the world. we can read that one of the most important and clearly most difficult aspect is to recreate high intensity condition using sport specific drill. Probably is one of the main important aspects, but it's not so simple to recreate such conditioning aspect as high heart rate or high similar to running based exercise. So sometimes we need to work with both running based and more specific about the physiological responses, more specific about external load that we can impose on our players, and coupled with small set gain. Sometimes we can, for example, increase the pitch size using small set gain, create some positional drills lasting different time duration to increase heart rate using sport specific activity with a low number of players, trying to recreate conditions similar to match both for external load and technical aspect. So the aim should be to recreate this condition using the ball for the main part of the activities. But we know that it's not simple because it's not simple to recreate this condition for performance development using specific drills. So we need to work in a balance between a running based exercise that can increase the intensity and sport specific activities. But the topic and the aim is to modulate small study game or trying to increase the intensity. And normally we utilize this approach at least one times per week in the middle of the week. But as probably all you know and all audience know, one times is the more important session for high intensity activity using sport specific drills on the pitch. When we play one match, clearly, when we play two matches, it's a little bit different. But we need to be focused on high intensity activity at least one times for using all aspects of high speed running, sprinter, high intensity heart rate responses, other, at least one times over the week, trying to be as specific as possible using small study gain or other exercises.
No, that's great information. And obviously this season, like everyone is going through in football and sports science, the schedule and the fixtures are just crazy, aren't they? Because I mean, you guys, I'm sure, are the same with the league fixtures, but also Champions League and all the cup games that you're playing. So that comes into the mix as well, doesn't it? That you have to manage all these games as well.
No, this is a really interesting topic because last year we are conducting a research project with the University of Milan and another international university about the variation of match demands across congested period. And at least we need to work about to increase the ability to collect information that could be really strong about this. Because, for example, in our experience about external load, we can have great differences about the first of the third match inside a congested period. This could be related to the physical fitness of the player. This could be related also because external load don't represent fatigue. Probably we don't have all information to determine the fatigue and the decrease of performance ability. There are some papers that suggest less synchronized movement, increase with fatigue across congested period. But in practice, it's not so simple to manage all this information, at least in our experience. I'm not sure about other experience, but for example, collecting information about the asynchronized movement between one match and another one, the link between asynchronized movement and physical performance outcomes as external load. Another problem is that we cannot collect information about internal load because we don't use heart rate monitoring during the match. So we are trying to collect RPE, for example, or other information using wellness scale the day after the match. And when we have 3 days, we are trying to work as strong as possible in the recovery activities and trying to understand, but it's not so simple to understand the effects of congestion period and to understand the right modulation to improve performance ability also in this period. So there are a lot of work to do, and all collaboration could be really interesting to improve these technologies, because in this year is a strange year, but also in other year when we a club or a team play 3 match per week, this information is really important.
I think that's a great point, and it's a great year to learn from, isn't it? Because we can, like you said, the research that you'll do in this year will only help other years that hopefully won't be as chaotic. But yeah, it's a great chance to learn.
Yes, we need to improve continuously. It's too much important.
Brilliant. Well, Andrea, we'll move on to some of the questions that I sent over to you. So the first one being, who are some of the biggest influences on your career? So whether that's coaches that you've worked with, people that you've learned from, is there anyone that sort of stands out?
It's not a simple question. I think that a lot of person give me some information that help me to increase. There are not one person, but all strength and conditioning, all coaches, all researchers that I work with help me increasing my knowledges. So I can't think of one person, but a lot of person.
I know that's a hard question, and a lot of people do struggle to get one or two names, so I appreciate that. The next one is, what's your biggest strength as a coach?
I believe a lot in the link between practice and research, and so I'm working on this aspect a lot of time in my week. I'm trying to increase my ability to perform research, but I need to learn a lot of things. I need to learn a lot about practice, and I would to know a lot, but this is my main feature, the link between research and the use of data from all part of the performance sports performance department. For example, the link, the data collected by medical department, the data collected by performance department of coaches, and this link between practice, data, and research. I think that this is my main expertise, and I believe in this. So I am trying to work with this aim, with the aim to improve my ability in this.
Brilliant. And then the next one, what's the best bit of CPD that you've done recently? So is that whether that's like a certain webinar that you've watched, or a podcast you've listened to, some research maybe that you've either done yourself or seen someone else do that you've applied to your practice? Is there anything that sort of stands out recently?
No, I try to be focused on a lot of learning platform. I give you an example. Sometime I listen your podcast or PC podcast when I'm running. I'm free. I love to run, and I try to listen podcast, or the most important the platform when I try to have information is PubMed, or where I can, or Scopus, where I can find a lot of scientific paper about. But there are nowadays also Twitter or other social media could help to have a lot of information to increase our knowledges. Clearly, we need to be able to understand when one information is consistent, for example, coming from a really scientific approach, then another one that is not so consistent because it's not based on an evidence-based practice, for example. But there are a lot of platforms, social media, or other learning platforms that could be useful for.
Brilliant. And then the final ones are, what do you think? So you've spoke about your biggest strength, or what you think your biggest strength is as a coach. But generally, when we look at strength and conditioning coaches, sports scientists, what do you think the most important strength is to have overall for any coach?
Probably it depends from the expertise. In soccer or in team sport, and as a strength and conditioning, for example, I think as I said to you before, I believe in the link between research and practice. The link between research and practice, working in team sport, for example, or sport, is a little bit different than the approach that a researcher working also in university have, or a strength and conditioning coach that don't believe in research or have different expertise. So we need to be able to have the right balance between scientific approach and a practice approach. This is one important aspect, because if you have the right balance, we can create information really useful for the pitch, or to manage training activities. Another great aspect is the ratio between the relationship between different strength and conditioning along the staff, and with along all staff, including medical and coaches department. This is one of the main important aspects. We need to be able to create link, to try to work all together. As I said to you before, it's not simple, but we need to try. We need to respect the knowledges of other professionals different from us, different from strength and conditioning coaches. And so this could be an important aspect for all, for medical, for coaches, for strength and conditioning. So this could be a strength for practitioner working in sport.
Brilliant. I think that's a great answer. I think there's absolutely loads for coaches to take away from that. So I really appreciate you coming on and giving all the information that you have today, Andrea, because it's absolutely brilliant. I was just going to ask for coaches, if they wanted to reach out, or they wanted to read some of your research or ask any additional questions, maybe, is there anywhere that you direct them?
Okay. Normally, I share our research project on a ResearchGate, for example, a platform where we can share all scientific paper. I use LinkedIn, where I can receive email for some question or other, as Andrea Riboli, and I use I'm starting to use Twitter also. To share our information, and with the aim that I spoke with you before, because it could be an important social to improve our knowledges, and to try to improve from the other. So I'm just using this platform, ResearchGate, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'm available for any question, and I'm available for any possible collaboration also. Why not? We are a lot of research projects with different departments, as a sports scientist, as a researcher. So it could be really interesting, improve different aspects in collaboration with different performance departments. So I'm available on LinkedIn. I can be contacted by mail.
Brilliant. That was amazing. So, Andrea, thank you very much for giving up your time. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Very much.
No, my pleasure. I thank you very much. It's really interesting to speak with you. It's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Not a problem, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.